Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
This is Heroic Investing, episode 181. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing a fellow podcast host. This is Dr. Forrest Bryant. And Dr. Bryant runs a podcast called High Speed Alliance, and that's also his mastermind. And the purpose of his mastermind is to help doctors, CEOs, and their families generate passive income that leads to freedom and creates legacy. I had the pleasure to join him at an event he did for his mastermind in Nashville a couple of months ago. And in that event, he asked me to participate in a freedom and legacy panel. And it was just a tremendous experience, talking with other individuals, expressing my feelings about what freedom means and how it's necessary for passing on a legacy. And I'm not talking financial legacy. We were more talking about your ideals, your beliefs, and your experiences, how you distill those down to the most important and ensure that they live on beyond you. And it was really a fascinating thing, but I got super inspired about freedom and talking about it. And I learned that Forrest Bryant is as equally inspired about those topics and pursuing those for the benefit of members of his mastermind, his circles of friendships, and certainly for his family. Dr. Bryant started his career as a dentist, and at age 39, he had a debilitating health issue that he'll talk about on our episode that caused him to have to change course. He had to kind of think of his dentist business more as a business and run that side of it and not be in there treating patients as he had done so many years and so successfully. After those challenges, he was a financial planner, still a real estate investor, still does a lot of financial planning and manages assets for his mastermind attendees. It was just an incredible culture that I saw at his event, and I look forward to participating many years to come with such a great group of individuals. And Dr. Bryant certainly is at the top of inspiring, ethical, amazing individuals that I met during that time. So very, very grateful. Following this episode, I'm going to turn the tables and he's going to interview me on his podcast. So you'll get kind of a double dose of part one and part two of this. I really do enjoy the time talking with him, and I think you're going to enjoy what you get in both of these podcasts. So the first up here is me interviewing Dr. Forrest Bryant. Dr. Bryant and I met through a mutual friend, and it's been just pretty electrifying for me. I've met so many great new friends and clients and kindred spirits that are like-minded with me. And when I say that, I mean interested in real estate as an investment, as a business, and entrepreneurship. And so it's a great pleasure to bring Dr. Bryant, and I talked a little bit about his background, but hopefully he'll share more with us. Dr. Bryant, thanks so much for joining us.
Gary, thank you, or actually let me say Captain Pinkerton, thank you for having me on the show today. I appreciate being here. I'm excited about your show. I'm a big supporter of the military and for our first responders, and I'll go ahead and throw out here. I know you went Navy, but my dad was in the Marine Corps, so a big Semper Fi to all the Marines that are out there. Appreciate all of you guys working so hard. I love the military and I love entrepreneurs, and I'm excited about being here today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, Forrest, to the group ahead of time in the introduction, a dentist, extremely successful dentist with your own practice, and something happened in your 30s, I think, right? And it changed your path. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
I don't like talking about it, but it's important for me to do it. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, but I'll tell a little bit of my backstory and I'll kind of weave it into there. Yeah. But, it's funny, Gary, I started off, I always wanted to do the hardest thing. I was always just a big thinker and always wanted to figure out something that was really hard. So, my dad was in the Marine Corps, and I thought about going to the Naval Academy and started going down that road, and I appreciate the sacrifice and everything that you went through to get there. But kind of at the last minute, I said, you know what, I think I'm just going to go to Auburn instead. So I ended up going to Auburn University, but I wanted to do something difficult. And so I started off, I was going to be an astronaut. So that was kind of, I started off in aerospace engineering, and I thought that was the hardest thing that you could do at the time. And so kind of went through that for a little while. And then actually kind of a funny story. I had two fifth-year seniors. This was back in the early 90s when we had the aerospace cutbacks, and I had two fifth-year seniors that worked with me at the university pool there. I managed the pool. They were interviewing for jobs, and they couldn't get a job. And they said, change your major. There's no jobs in aerospace now. So I was like, well, gosh, I don't want to go through this very, very difficult education and not be able to get a job. So the next thing I switched to environmental engineering in the civil engineering school, saw what engineers were doing in real life. And, most of them that I worked with, I co-opted for a couple quarters. I just saw them sitting at their desk typing every day, and they were type. And I was like, I don't know if that's what I want to do. I don't necessarily want that type of desk job. I want to do something a little more exciting. Actually, at the EPA, they had the hazmat response team. So, they had the big, looks like the ambulance with the guys with the bubble suits. And I was like, I'd rather go do that than, sit at the desk with the engineers. But eventually I kind of found my way back to dentistry. I'd actually done my career fair in 8th grade on dentistry, and I was always fascinated with it because it just seemed like a great career where you get to help people and you make a good living and you get to be your own boss. I was always real entrepreneurial. And so I said, I think that's it. I think I found my calling. So transferred over to pre-med, pre-dentistry, and then got accepted early into dental school. And fast forward through there, started off, had a little spell where I thought I was going to be an oral surgeon. Once again, I wanted to do the hardest thing, but kind of finally came back to my senses and decided I was ready to get out and start my life and start a family, and got married. And I was just really family oriented. And so started off as a general dentist. And for a lot of the guys out there, I think it's important. I started off as an employee. I wasn't an owner. I was an employee in my practice. And so I knew I wanted to be an owner, but I knew I had to learn the ropes first. So, I started off, got educated. I worked on my skill. I worked on myself. Eventually had an opportunity to be an owner in that practice, and I became a fractional owner, and then ultimately worked my way up to we were 50-50 owners with the senior dentist that was at the practice. And this is important. Part of the story is a lot of the practice management consultants and gurus at the time were selling this notion of selling off fractions, building up the practice and selling off fractions of it as it grows. And, I really studied that model really hard. And I said, that's not really what I want to do. And so I really made a conscious decision to take control of my future. And so I ended up buying out the senior doctor. I wanted to be 100% owner of the business. And so that was a big change that I had to make mentally in order to take control of my future. Did that. We opened up 2 more practices, and I was just, everything was kind of rocking along. I was actually 39 back in 2011, giving my age away now, but I actually had some health issues, and I ended up having, altogether, I had 3 elbow surgeries and a shoulder surgery, and I had neuropathy, which left me with my hands and feet fully numb, and I lost a lot of my fine motor skills in my hands. And so, at that point, we went to, tons and tons of doctors and trying to figure out what's going on. And, nothing was really improving along that line. And so I kind of had to finally just accept that I wasn't going to be able to practice dentistry anymore. Fortunately, this is a really important lesson, I think, for entrepreneurs that are listening. I had a real business at that time. I had a business that was very much dependent on me, but not 100%. At that time, I had other dentists that were working for me. I had systems and I had processes in place. I knew how to hire people. I knew how to manage, and I knew how to lead. We had a lot of hygienists. I knew what I needed to do at that point. So I really kind of transitioned at that point into the CEO of the business. And so I really worked on the business skills, and we continued, even though, and this is a hard thing for, if you're an entrepreneur out there and your entire business is on your shoulders and it's dependent on you doing the things that need to be done every day. You mentioned Kiyosaki in our earlier discussion. That's not a real business if it's 100% dependent on you. You've got to get to a point where you are managing the business, or you've got somebody else who's managing the business. And that's really where you kind of get up into that highest quadrant. And I was close there, but I knew how to get there. And so we really just kind of ramped it up. And so we hired additional dentists to replace me coming out of the operatory. And we really just kind of ramped things up. And then ultimately had another big decision to make, whether that was the rest of my life. Am I going to manage dental practices for the rest of my life, or, did I feel a higher calling, and do I want to really go out and make a bigger splash in the world and make a bigger difference in the world? And ultimately I decided that I really wanted to help other dentists and other doctors and other CEOs do what I had done with, had to scale a business. And along that time, I started developing some more skills, continuing to reinvest in myself, to learn how to manage wealth, to learn how the securities world works on the backside, to learn about permanent life insurance, which I know you talk about on your show a lot. And so I worked for a big company along those lines and was a financial planner for several years, learning the ropes. And then we opened our own business back in 2017, just almost a year and a half ago. And so we're a registered investment advisor now, and we help clients. High Speed Alliance is our company, and we help our clients, doctors, dentists, CEOs. They come to us, and we help full comprehensive financial planning on traditional, but also on the alternative side. And so we're big real estate investors. I've always been, and we can get into that, I guess, a little bit at some point, but always been a real estate investor. So I got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, but also, we're very unique in the space that we can help our clients with traditional investments, but also alternative investments. We do a ton of different types of real estate, single family, private lending, multifamily, self-storage, senior living. We help our clients get invested in a lot of those things. So that was a long answer, man. I don't know what that was, but that was a lot of information there. But sorry I took so long. I probably rambled. But
no. That's it. That was really good. So one of the most inspiring things I heard in there, first of all, I agree with you completely as the engineer. It was not a good fit for me. Never was. I thought I was absolutely nuts going and getting a master's degree in engineering at the University of Illinois. And frankly, the reason I did is because they let me go for free. And I put off, the hard Navy submarine stuff for a little bit, and was back home after 4 years of being away from Illinois, and family was there. So it was really crazy ulterior motives. But I found myself in a master's program in engineering, hating the subjects I was in because it just was not checking with me. But the inspiring thing I heard takes me back to honors English when I was a sophomore, junior, something like that. My teacher gets an early look at one of my papers and says, this is a B product or AB product, but if you're the kind of person I think you are, you'll throw this away and start over. And I thought about that for a while, and I have to admit, I just said, you know what? That's just not me. I'm not going to waste that much more time. So I turned in the other product. But I see you, realizing 4 or 5 years into your program, this is not the right choice, and having the fortitude to make a right turn and go a completely different direction. I mean, that hats off to you for that. I mean, that obviously shows some commitment. And when I'm sure there were plenty of people telling you were crazy. Let's talk a little bit about all of the clients that you work with, the doctors, the entrepreneurs. You help them. We had a conversation about a different way to look at retirement, and we're very much on alignment here. And I just don't want to forget this point, and maybe I'll circle back after that to some lessons you can give to these other budding entrepreneurs that we have in our audience. But thinking about retirement, this podcast this show started several years ago when my co-host Jason Hartman was trying to bring options to first responders where at the time their local municipality or their state pension systems were at risk. And we don't worry so much about pensions in the approach that you take. Explain that a little bit, if you would.
As entrepreneurs, very few of my clients have a guaranteed retirement income stream. They have to, that's one of the, back when I was running my dental practice, that was part of the joke is you've got to save for your retirement. Nobody's going to bail you out. So, if you want to have a nice retirement, you want to be able to retire one day, you're going to have to do it. And, that was one of the things that business owners know this. If you're an employee, you don't really appreciate this, but if you've got a 401k or retirement plan and you've got your employee contributions, and that's what you take out of your paycheck and you contribute that to the plan, but then your employer, typically you've got a match. And so they're going to take some money and they're going to match that up with your money. And then, maybe you got a profit sharing plan that they add on there. But, part of the joke is the business owner is, okay, I'm going to reach in this pocket because I'm an employee and I'm going to put some money in, and then I'm going to reach in this pocket and I'm the employer and I'm going to put the money out there. And so, it's all on you as the business owner in order to fully put that money into this environment. And then, we got to invest it, and we got to have a time factor on that to see what that looks like. But my thinking and what we do now for our clients is, almost 180 degrees from that. We really help our clients really focus on creating multiple streams of passive income. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And we can kind of get into some of those things. But One of those things obviously is being real estate. That's a big bucket. So let's just say, you've got a real estate bucket. You're going to plow money in there, and maybe you're going to leverage, and that's going to create a drip that's going to come out. We can get into taxes if you want to. I think taxes is more important than investment returns, but we can come back to that one if you want to. But typically there's three types of money. You got your taxable money, your tax deferred money, and your tax-free money. So I like to play over in the tax-free money side, and especially into retirement. So if you think over there, you're going to plow some money into real estate investment. And one of these days down the road, you want to start turning that drip on and start getting some tax-free money. You can turn that on, and then boom, you get whatever your number is. You start covering that monthly. Usually got your fixed expenses in retirement and your discretionary expenses. And so, you're kind of looking at, what's that total number and kind of breaking it down. What do I need here? This is one thing that we love to do for our clients. Okay, we got some Social Security that's coming in. Okay, what are we going to layer on top of that? Okay, we got some real estate income that's coming in. Not just one stream, but a lot of times we're talking about sometimes dozens of streams of income coming in through different types of real estate investments. You got your tax deferred money, you got your tax free money. You can turn that on. Oh yeah, and you can layer some permanent life insurance, which you're a genius at designing those plans. So there's a lot of things that you can do to set up multiple streams of income when you get into retirement. And you can look at those and kind of break them down and say, okay, this check or these few checks are going to cover the fixed expenses, and these are going to be discretionary. And then all this other stuff is just fluff on top. So, that really becomes important, because I know my listeners, just like your listeners, a lot of them really care about legacy, and they care about making a difference, and they care about purpose, and they care about a why and why they're here and doing something that matters beyond the time that they're here. So, that could look like, investing into your own family or to your kids, or that may involve investing into a charity or a cause that you're very passionate about, or maybe that's your church or your religion. There's a lot of things that if you have that gap and you have that extra, that's what can really make a big difference. And so not only now going forward, but also in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. One of the things I wanted to circle back to just a little bit, you said multiple streams of income, and we're completely aligned, of course. And just about everything we've said in the last hour and a half together on these podcasts, something that may be missed by the audience is the reason there's multiple streams, right, is that they're independent in some way. If you have just real estate, well, you got real estate in different cities around the country, or you have some that's real estate and some that's correlated to some other industry. Maybe it's a business in fast food industry. You got McDonald's, right? And so there's a funny thing about depressions. People still eat at McDonald's. So the high-end steakhouse might be in trouble, but not the McDonald's. So, you've got different industries uncorrelated. So that's just an awesome answer to that question. One of the things we try to do on our show, Forrest, is we try to inspire people who are busy, who are working crazy back-to-back shifts, maybe deploying for months at a time. Are any of my listeners, you think, people that you could help specifically? I know you deal a lot with doctors and dentists and entrepreneurs. So how could they, what resources do you have available that may help this audience?
There's three big things let me throw out right here. Number one is education. And I mentioned that whenever I got to a crossroads, I've always been a big believer in education. I preach it to my kids, and I hope that I've lived that and been an example. That when I was a dentist, I wanted to be the best dentist I could be. And, you don't learn how to be the best dentist by what you learned in dental school. That's the license to not hurt anybody. And so then if you want to be the best, you gotta get educated. And so I was always learning and trying to get better, and always doing a lot of continuing education. And I spent probably $500,000 on education, trying to be the best dentist that I could be. And over a very short period of time, I was a fellow in the Academy of General Dentistry. I don't know, you may not have anybody that on this podcast that knows what that means, but it just really denotes a lifelong, high achieving dedication to being the best and to learning. And you have to do like 500 hours of CE just to even sit for the test. So, that was one of the things I did. And I was also, along that line, I was also very interested in business and in financial planning and trying to learn those things. And so a lot of those things that I took relayed into my future life as I'm helping consult other businesses and CEOs and entrepreneurs and doctors and dentists to do the things, and then helping them with their financial plan. So just that education. So, we talked about it earlier. Educate yourself, get educated, whatever it is that you want to do, try to be the best at it. If you're, working to be a single family investor, be the best at it. Go to masterminds, get involved into other groups, be around people that are doing it or that have done it, and so that you can learn from them. But education is really, really, really critical. Another thing, and I am a fiduciary for my clients, and I usually give a disclaimer at the beginning, and I usually say something like, don't do anything that I say on this podcast. This is blanket information. I don't know you if you're listening to me, so don't do anything I say without talking to somebody who is your advisor, who knows about your objectives, your time horizon, your risk tolerance. But saying that, I am a big believer, and you won't hear many financial advisors say this, but I'm a big believer in self-directed retirement accounts. So if you're listening and you don't have a military pension, if you're a firefighter, you're a first responder, seriously look at self-directed IRAs. The self-directed Roth IRA is an incredible place for you guys to put your money. If you are an entrepreneur who does not have any employees, there's a thing called the solo 401k self-directed plan. That is the, one of the highest level types of retirement plans that you can do if you're an entrepreneur. And if you don't have any employees, take a serious look at that. And that's an incredible place where you can put a lot of money into that tax-free bucket. And when you do that, then you've got access to other types of investments, such as single family homes. Your listeners may not know that if they put money, if they roll money into a self-directed IRA, that they can actually purchase property, and they can actually take a loan inside there. They can actually leverage that purchase. It's a little bit different than outside. There are some rules, and there's an asterisk there. So it's not for everybody. Don't go do that without talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Private lending is, I'm a big fan of being a private lender. And as your listeners, as they are moving some money into a self-directed IRA environment, becoming a private lender is an incredible way to learn a lot about real estate. So once again, don't do this on your own. Make sure that you're talking and know people that are very knowledgeable about that space. But it's a very, very powerful space to be in. And coincidentally, I love the legacy aspect of it, because I love teaching my kids and kids in our client community how to do that. That's a really, really powerful financial tool to teach somebody how to be a private lender. And then, the third thing is just figure out what you can do and figure out where you can get started and just go do it. One of the easiest places to start is purchasing a single family home. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not really, really hard to understand. I would think that a lot of your listeners could qualify for bank financing in order just to kind of get started with that first property. But I know you've got a lot of people in your network. We've got a lot of people in our network. If they're listening, you just got to get started. You got to look at what you can do. You mentioned earlier about at a time, if you've got a good income, or, if you've got a good brain, or, just whatever that thing is that you can take and that you can leverage, you got to try to leverage that. And that's where you should focus on getting started. So just get educated on leadership, on entrepreneurship, on real estate, get educated on self-directed IRA investing and / become a private lender. And then the third thing is just get started, figure out, partner with somebody, get into a community, become a member of a mastermind, get a mentor that's done it. And, don't try to do this stuff on your own. It's too hard. You'll get there so much faster by leveraging the relational capital to really plug into some people that are givers that want to help you. And so, I would say that's a few things that hopefully will be very valuable to your listeners.
Yeah. Educate yourself and get started, right?
Yep.
Another one, either Jim Rohn or I think this is probably another Ziegler, he said that you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great one day. You actually have to start. Totally. So I have so many clients who are like, should I get this entity in place? Should I get this other thing in place? And I'm like, the most important thing is to get the experience. And so actually physically get a property. Man, Forrest, it's been so amazing spending some time with the real Dr. Bryant. I hope that the listeners have learned a tremendous amount from this. Can you give them real quick any last parting words, but also how they can find out more about you and the company?
Sure. Great. Appreciate that. Our website is highspeedalliance.com. And we also have our own podcast. I think it's at highspeedalliance.com /podcast or something like that. You could follow us on Facebook. We actually have, if you go on our website, you can actually join our mailing list, and we send out podcasts and blogs and just some information about, we do a quarterly event. So if somebody's listening, they want to know more, welcome to come to one of our events. And it's a lot of education, and we cover a lot of ground. It's just phenomenal. We've got clients all across the U.S., and we just bring in some really great speakers. We hope to have you, Captain Pinkerton, at a future event. So
I'll show up in my submarine.
Yeah, absolutely. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me personally, my email is drb at highspeedalliance.com, and shoot me an email. Love to connect with you. We love to create content to go out just to help people, have the courage to get started. Our mission is just helping people create freedom and legacy in their life. And so, freedom's not just financial freedom, it's also time freedom. So teaching people how to really create real businesses that are not 100% dependent on them, and to really think about a legacy plan for not only for their business, but also for their family. And so we're real passionate about that. And we just feel very blessed to be able to get up and help people every day. And we're having a great time. And thank you for having us. And hopefully we've provided some great content for your listeners.
Absolutely. You certainly have. And again, thanks for being gracious with your time. I know you're a pretty busy individual. As I mentioned at the introduction, I had the pleasure of being on your podcast, and that'll run shortly after this one. So if you haven't had enough of Dr. Forrest Bryant, which is pretty likely, then you're going to get some more. So hang in there. Thanks again.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.